Thank you so much for joining us today for the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Here on the Pastor's Potluck, it's similar to a normal potluck where you might get something that you want and there may be something that you just want to pass up altogether. And that's okay. There's something here for everybody. Our goal here is to encourage you and maybe in the process entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Welcome to another episode of the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Dude, one of the things I'm really excited for is we just went live recently within the last week and a couple of days with this journey through John. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work that goes into it for us. But one of the things that is just so much fun is just listening to everybody's little stories and how they tie it in with the message there. Yeah. And it's just great. Yeah. Maybe I'm just I don't know. I just thoroughly enjoy it. I agree. And so I'm in charge of uploading the videos to TikTok. So I'm you get to watch them. I get to kind of pre-watch them, and I don't watch the whole thing. Yeah. But as it's loading, it gives me just that little snip, that first snippet or whatever. Yeah. And it's always the story part. And I'm no, don't watch the rest of it yet, because you're not to that day. You're going to get really, just wait. I've actually got to watch today's. But I was oh man, I was don't get ahead of yourself.
Dude, so whenever they upload it all to our Google Drive account, I watched them all. Yeah. I spent an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it was, the total runtime, and I watched them all in order. And I'm watching them on a daily basis too in the morning. But man, I just enjoy it. It's one of those things that I don't know. It's a great way to start off the day. Just kind of reflection, kind of ask yourself those questions that everybody's kind of bringing to the table as well. It's good to be reminded of the stuff that I did as well. And I'm oh man, I need to put that into practice, or, I need to pray about these things, or just whatever they could be. But it's just been so it's been fun. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's just no better way to do it and, or put it, but it's fun.
I've enjoyed these a lot this time around. Last time was good, but this time around, we all had a different mindset of how we were to write those and how we were to kind of go about them. And that story at the beginning has really been able to kind of bring you in a little bit more. And so it's been really cool to hear those stories at the beginning and then get the meat and potatoes of the stuff after and see something that you wouldn't necessarily think could maybe be applied to that is applied to that. I have one, and I don't know if it's today's or tomorrow's, but I have one that when I was reading it, I was oh my goodness. I was this is the Santa Claus movie. Yeah. It is the Santa Claus movie, because Judy, the little elf, says, seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing. And I'm sitting there and I was how many times have I watched this movie? And I've thought that exact thing. And that's literally what's being said in this scripture. And so it was funny, because it was just little things like that as I was writing them or reading or whatever. It was just oh, I remember when that happened, going back in my brain and being I can actually piece that with this and figuring out how that tangibly works with that passage or whatever.
Yeah, it's crazy. Whenever you're kind of put in charge of content creation, these are little mini sermons, and the things that the Lord brings to your mind to help tie that in and connect it in a way that's oh, okay, that makes sense. Because sometimes, I mean, I find myself doing this often is why is this in here? What, where's a connection point for me? Because this is important, because it's in the word, but I need a connection point. And so applying or just attaching those personal life stories to it, it's oh, okay. Because there's things that we talk about that everybody has gone through. Mm-hmm. There's some things that nobody has gone through. Right. But it still makes a connection to where you're oh man, I'm kind of glad Jerry got saved. Cause I shared this one story. It's in one of the older ones. or one of the later ones. And it's just a story of like just some nonsense that I was doing before I met Jesus.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it was just like it was a thief moment for me. So like I was just doing stuff and trying to steal things so I could sell it and pay for stuff. But yeah. Thank you, Lord, for getting a hold of me. But the way that it connects with the scripture, it's just like you listen to it and you go, okay, that kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like you probably never stolen anything of significant value.
I think I stole a candy bar when I was a kid.
Yeah. Like what kid hasn't?
Yeah.
No, but you didn't steal something that was worth like thousands of dollars.
No.
I did.
You know what? It's okay.
It's not okay.
It's okay now. It's okay now.
No, I still walk around thinking some cop's going to come and get me.
Yeah, that was your BC days.
I know. Like if I ever won the lottery, like I would, I'd find that guy and just be like, dude, I'm so sorry. Here.
I brought you a gift.
But anyways, I'm super excited of like this little series that you and I are going to go and talk about, because recently I've just gotten a lot of firsthand experience with your interactions with kids that attend here, maybe just individuals that are outside of the church. Mm-hmm. And you have a way of communicating with people that is, I don't even know how to describe it. It is so inspirational to see how you can present information in a way that it makes sense for the individual that you're conversing to. Mm-hmm. But it also challenges them to be better,
right?
To whatever that looks like. It also challenges them to take a next step in their faith journey. And I'll give a little quick story. You and I baptized a child at the river this past Sunday, which was amazing. We had the opportunity that day to baptize 15 people.
I think so.
So we had 2 in our services, and then we took a whole bunch of people down to the river, and the water was a little chilly.
Just a little bit.
It was very shallow. But because we haven't had rain here for a while, but it was just an incredible day. But there was a child there, and the way that you were just talking to him, I'm just like, okay, this is new. This is exciting. Mm-hmm. Like, I was like, I don't talk to people like this. Like, I really don't. Yeah. I guess this is just maybe a personality thing, and maybe this is what the Lord is trying to teach me how to be better as an individual, maybe a parent or just as a ministry leader. But it's almost like authoritative, like the way that I talk to people, because I'm just like, hey, this is what you need to do. But I believe that because of your conversation with this child and how it went, and I was like, oh, there's better ways. There's better ways for me to be able to talk to people, especially my own kids.
Right.
But you threw out, and as we were talking about this, you threw out something that was just super interesting, and you can go on a deep dive on this stuff. Like, there's so much information on it. And it's called motivational interviewing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know. It's crazy. So I had actually never heard of motivational interviewing until I started working at Marshall. So in 2019, I think it was 2019, I got a new job, and I was on staff with Marshall Health, and I was working as a oh goodness, what was the official title. I was a prevention education specialist for a grant-funded program that they had called Great Rivers Regional System for Addiction Care. And I was going out to schools and I was going out to the community and things along those lines. And I was teaching community members, students about prevention education when it came to substance use disorders. And so in the midst of that, I had just graduated from my bachelor's program in social work. So I just finished social work. I had been a social worker at Davis Child Shelter for almost 4 years and had been doing that, and went straight from working with kids, doing counseling and things along those lines, to now going and actually educating kids and families and adults in the communities. And then one of the things that they had us do while we were there was they wanted us to take this course, this training on motivational interviewing. And I hadn't really heard about motivational interviewing. I had heard about different types of interviewing skills. And as a social worker, like, you are given like different types of ways to speak to people when you're doing counseling sessions. Like, you use rephrasing, like the person tells you something and then you repeat it back to them, or you summarize, and then you're like, okay, well, what I think you're saying is blah, 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 blah. And so there's different ways that you can do that. But then there was this whole new thing called motivational interviewing. And I was like, what is this? I don't know what this is. And the more I started doing it, and the more I started listening to the person that we were learning from, I was like, oh my goodness, like, this is actually really cool. Like, this is a cool way not to just like do counseling with people, but like just a cool way to talk with people.
Yeah.
Because it has you do a lot of like open-ended questions, which are those questions that don't require just yes or no.
Yeah, that's what I like. That's one of the things like I have to get better at. Yeah. Because I did a little bit of study on it, but like I was always just asking my kids, how was your day?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we've talked about this before. I think you and I have talked about this before, but like it requires you to like ask those open-ended questions. It requires you to kind of dig a little deeper, but also acknowledge what is actually being said in those moments. It requires you to actively listen and not give your opinion, which is very easy to do when you're talking to people.
A lot. I think we all struggle with that.
And it has you have to really have a lot of empathy and patience when you're doing that, because you really, in that motivational interviewing, the way that I feel like I took it in my brain, it's more of you trying to get that person to come to the realization of, hey, this is what I need to do. Oh, hey, this is how I can fix this. It's not me saying, Jared, this is how you need to do X, Y, and Z. Yeah. Like, it's me saying, okay, Jared, like, this is what's going on in your life. Like, can you tell me about that? And you tell me about it, and you're like, it's been really hard. And I'm like, you know what, Jared? I bet that has been really hard. How does that make you feel? So it's rephrasing a little bit of those things. Yeah. And there's never any buts in those conversations. Okay, I understand that, but you did do this. Yeah. No, it's not a but. It's okay, I understand that. And how did you get to that point? And what's next? Like, what do you think could come next? So it's kind of eliminating that but mentality and going to that and mentality, but also just continuing to empathize, continuing to pull, and continuing to ask those questions that allow you, not leading questions, but allowing those questions that can have you be able to truly get answers from kids. Like, tell me a little bit more about that. And that's not just with kids, that's with adults as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's making just like simple little changes in those questions, like you said, it's literally you're replacing prepositions.
Yes.
Instead of the but, because it's so easy just to sit there and go, well, no wonder you got in trouble because this is what you did. Mm-hmm. Like, no. Like, let them phrase it in a way to where they can begin to understand, okay, I'm in this situation because I did this.
Right.
I mean, it's so quick and easy to place the blame, and no one wants to be told their downfalls. But I think if someone's willing to tell someone that you're having a conversation with that I put myself in this situation because of this, then it's like it creates a sense of ownership almost. And it's not even just necessarily with dealing with like bad behavior or just whatever. that's a joke. But letting them see like, okay, like the opposite side of things as well. These are the things that you did really well. What makes you think that you got to this point that things are going extremely well for you? Well, I did this. I put in the hard work, and then they have this sense of ownership that it's like, wow, I see all the hard work and the dedication that I put into, helping correct this or whatever. And this is the outcome of that. And this is a great way, because a lot of the times, like, there's so many people that just don't have even like basic coping skills.
Correct.
With their situation.
Well, and motivational interviewing can be used in those situations as well. Like, it's really just the way in which you're communicating with someone.
Yeah.
In all areas, not just when you're like trying to get information. It's just in general, just the way in which you communicate with someone. When you're actively present and actively listening to someone, people can tell.
Yeah.
Like, we learned this in school, but like the best form of communication is body language. Like, nonverbal communication is the best form of communication, because it lets me know that you're listening. It lets me know that you're attentive. It lets me know that you actually know what I'm saying, because you're not sitting here with your arms crossed. Like, we did this a couple weeks ago with the kids. We were talking about, I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was something we were doing in like one of our lessons. And I said, how does it make you feel if someone's talking to you and they're like, wow, you look so nice today? I said, do you think that Olivia's going to believe that if I'm sitting here like this with my arms crossed? And they were like, no. I said, why not? Well, because you look mad. And I was like, okay. I said, exactly. I said, so if I take my arms down and I'm like, oh my goodness, you look so nice today, do you think she's going to believe that? Yeah. Why? Because of how you said it and the way that your arms were moving. And I'm like, exactly. Because nonverbal communication goes a long way. Like, when you're actively, attentively listening to someone, you're nodding, you're shaking your head, you're having eye contact, you're not on your phone, you're not over here watching TV, you're not over here doing this, you're actively listening to what they're saying. And that's a big part of that motivational interviewing too, is like truly being in that conversation, not being in 5 different areas, but being present in what you're doing and being able to truly be empathetic, which is not easy. It is actually a spiritual gift. Empathy is actually a spiritual gift. And that is one of my spiritual gifts. But empathizing with people, not sympathizing, they are different. And so like empathizing with people in those moments, and like I don't want to say justifying, but like, just because I'm feeling something one way doesn't mean that you're feeling it the same way. Like, I think we've talked about this before, but like something could happen right now in this moment. Like, someone could come barging in and you and I would both experience that in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And so when you tell that to someone, like, okay, the snake a couple weeks ago, like, I truly was like, oh, the snake was like this big. And I was like saying that it wasn't very big. And Jared's like, Jessica, that snake was at least from my shoulders down. And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that. Like, I blocked that part of my brain out. But like in those moments, like in those conversations, like there was justification for my freak out, but then like I made it way smaller in my brain than what it really was. Yeah. And you were like, Jessica, that is not accurate. Like,
yeah, no, that's
not true.
At least 5 feet long.
But that's the thing. Like, we both experienced that differently. Clearly I screamed in the lobby and you just came out, opened the door and picked it up and like went on. It was just the snake skin, fair warning. It was just the snake skin. But at that moment I didn't know that. And so
if it was alive, I probably would have grabbed my Bible and thrown it at it.
Well, get out of here. I was done. So
Aaliyah found one in here the other day and she just picked it up.
Yeah. But it's in those things, like we all experience that stuff differently. And so like, it's in those moments where you can express that. It's like, oh, okay. Like, tell me more about that. How did you feel, Jared, when you found that when Jessica was standing in the lobby and screaming because there was a snake out there? How'd you feel about that? Like, tell me more about that.
I was concerned.
So it's those types of conversations. Like, it's not just in those, day to day. It's just literally, it's not just in those moments where you're trying to find out like what happened in a situation. It's literally day-to-day conversations that you have with people, letting them know that you're present and you're active and you're listening to what they're saying in those moments.
Yeah, you have to look at these things as a collaborative process. It's one of those like I can't expect my kids to be engaged in conversation if it's just me like, hey, blah, 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 and just allowing them to have one word answers. Because if it's just a one word answer, then my relationship with my kids is going to go downhill.
Right.
But also the things that maybe I'm asking them to do is they won't get done. Mm-hmm. They literally won't get done. But approaching it and talking to my kids, just about anything. Like if I want it to stick, then they walk away from that conversation going, man, you know what, Dad really cared about what we were talking about.
Because you're present in those moments.
Yeah. And I think that's just like key. It's so easy to get caught up in, man, I've got 1,000 things to do. You know, laundry's got to get done, dishes, whatever. Got to mow the grass, got all this other stuff and blah, 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 blah. But just literally taking out a little bit of time out of your day to just be, like you said, be present.
Yeah.
And hey, like, tell me about your day. How did it start off? You know, how did it go? Instead of just saying, how was your day?
Yeah.
You know, just
good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell me how it was good. I didn't get in trouble. Yeah. You know, but no, just tell me about your day. You know, how was your classes? Like, you know, start off with your first class, your Bible class. Tell me, what are you learning? You know, what are you getting excited about learning?
Yeah.
Like, there's just like little ways that you can make those conversations.
Yeah. Like Sunday mornings, when we start on Sunday mornings, like we always do a countdown with kids. So like there's a 5-minute countdown, and during that countdown, we go to the bathroom, we start cleaning up, we do all that. And those kids that are kind of left in the room that don't need to use the bathroom, that they're done kind of cleaning up, they come over and they sit down. And I always ask the same thing pretty much almost every week. And I'm like, all right, who had a good weekend? And they'll raise their hand and I'll say, okay, Jared, what made your weekend so good? What did you do that made your weekend so good?
I'm not in your class. So just like, for the people listening.
He's not. That could be interesting though. But that would be like, I'm like, okay, like I look and see whose hands are up and I'm like, all right, what'd you do this weekend that made your weekend so fun? We went to the swimming pool. I got to see my cousins. I went to a baseball game. I lost a baseball game. Blah, blah, blah. And so you just get to have those conversations in that moment. And then sometimes you get the like squirrel like answers. Like, I got my dog and he's 5 and he went to the vet on 2 days ago. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's crazy. But still allowing that space for them to be able to do that. Because again, it lets them know that I care about what they're saying. I don't just blow them off.
Yeah. I think also one of the things that we have to do better at, and I think this is just for everybody, is the empathy side, the compassion side. Because sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in the conversation with a child and, you know, like, why are you having a bad day? Well, you know, like, you know, I slipped on the rocks or whatever, or, you know, so-and-so said this and whatever. And things that are just so insignificant to us are hugely important to kids, because they haven't had the life experiences that we have, moving, you know, out and away from parents and going to college and bills and car issues and you know, they haven't been hit with the reality of life is fleeting, you know, with losing friends and all these other things, you know, things that are like significant, like major significant. Just because they haven't had those life experiences doesn't mean that what they are going through is not tough or it's not important to them. Exactly. Like, because those things are tough, because I can tell you the first time what I was doing, the first time I experienced like a fist fight, and I still like it pops in my head every once in a while because that was a life-changing thing because I thought that everybody got along. Yeah. And, I was young. I was at kids camp.
Well, this is example. Sunday, we did prayer. We did prayer requests on Sunday. Okay. Yeah. Now, mind you, I have kindergarten through 5th grade. Sometimes you do get those, my guinea pig is sick.
Yeah.
Okay. But Sunday, these were from kindergarten through 5th grade. These were some of the prayer requests. My dad has to go to the Mayo Clinic. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's got to be tough, man. That's awful. I am so sorry to hear that. My best friend decided she didn't want to be my friend anymore, and it makes my heart hurt. That's exactly what she said on Sunday.
Yeah.
And then there was another one that said grandma was sick. And so I think understanding that, no, they may not have had those big things that have happened to them, but at the same time, we do have kids that are experiencing things, especially in this day and age, that we did not experience when we were growing up.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think of some of the things that our kids have had to experience. I mean, wasn't it just last week there was another school shooting? And so it's things like that. I will never forget when Landon came home as a kindergartner and told us that he played a game called Monsters. And it was literally how they taught him as a kindergartner to hide and to run if there was an active shooter in their classroom. That was devastating. I mean, it made me sick. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, this is awful. That is the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
But we have here in West Virginia, we have over 7,000 kids in foster care. We have kids in our church that are in foster care. We have kids in our church that have been adopted. We have kids in our church that are being raised by parents who are in addiction or in recovery. We have kids in our church who have experienced abuse and have experienced homelessness and are being raised by single parents. We have kids in our church whose parents have passed away. This was a few months ago. We were doing something, I can't remember what it was. And I said something about I said that very thing. I said something about, sometimes moms pass away or dads pass away, and that can be hard. And in that class that day, we had 5 kids who had a parent who had passed away. And so just because it may not be adult level hard doesn't mean that they're not experiencing hard things.
Yeah. And
I've had parents reach out and say, Jess, I don't know what to do with X, Y, and Z. And it always breaks my heart because it's these are little ones. These are little kids dealing with big emotions that they don't understand. They don't understand why they get mad the way, they don't understand why they can't sit still. They don't understand why, this happens or that happens. Heck, sometimes I don't understand it either.
Yeah.
But being present and being allowed to be able to be a part of that, and knowing that they can come to someone and talk to them is a big deal, because I will never, ever forget when I was in Kansas City, and people may have heard me talk about him before, but I had a kid in Kansas City. He was 16. His name was Jamar. And he was my little buddy. I would have adopted him in a heartbeat. He was raised by his great grandmother. And he had turned 16 in January of 2010, January 6th of 2010, and January 26th of 2010, he was killed. And so the weeks leading up to his death were very hard for Jamar. He had found out that there was a possibility that he was going to be a dad. And I remember him coming into my office one day, and he sat down and he's just sitting there and he's kind of down in the dumps. And I said, "What's going on with you today?" And he's like, "Nothing." I said, "Don't tell me that." I was like, "That's not true." I said, I heard what was going on last night." He was like, "You heard that stuff?" I was like, "Yeah." I said, "You want to talk to me about it?" He's like, "No." I was like, "Okay, that's fine." So we just sat in my office. Probably that's the good thing too. Allow a silence, because silence is golden. It really is. And so we just sat in my office. I continued to work on my computer. He continued to just sit there in the chair across from my desk. And he was like, "Miss Jessica." I said, "What?" He goes, "Why do you care?" And I said, "Why wouldn't I care?" He's like, "Because adults don't care about kids like that." He said, "Adults don't care what kids got going on." And I said, well, I do. So do you want to talk to me about what was being talked about last night? And he's like, yeah. I said, okay. I said, well, tell me what's going on. And he goes, I said, is what was happening, what was being said true? And he's like, it might be, I don't know yet. And I was like, okay. And I said, well, how does that make you feel? Like, he's like, I'm scared. My grandma's going to kill me, blah, 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 blah. You know, like he was scared. But afterwards, he went to walk out. Like, we had our whole conversation, and he went to walk out, and he's like, hey, Miss Jess. I said, what, buddy? And he goes, thank you. He said, normally adults don't listen to kids. And it's true. Like, a lot of times adults don't take the time to listen to kids. They don't. They just feel like a lot of times it's irrelevant. And so, but actually having that person that you can go to and know that they can talk with you or you can talk with them. Like, I had that privilege just a few weeks ago to talk to a kid that comes to our church, and they have some really hard things going on right now. They have family members that are like experiencing major sickness, and they've experienced it before, and they were scared and nervous about what's to come. And they just wanted legit, this child said, can I just have some one-on-one time with you? Yeah, let's go. So we went to lunch and we talked, and I let them just literally just tell me everything. And we did a lot of that motivational interviewing type stuff. I was like, man, that does sound hard. I said, how does that make you feel? Well, I'm really worried about X, Y, and Z. And I was like, I mean, that's accurate. Like, you should be worried about those things.
Yeah.
And so justifying that, like, those feelings, because I don't feel what they feel. I don't have a clue what they're going through. But just acknowledging those things in those moments is big, because, I mean, you think about when you were a kid, a lot of times you were told to be quiet, don't, whatever. Yeah. And there are still those moments where we want to be like, shh, stop talking.
Yeah.
I think I did that to Landon this morning, actually. I was like, stop, would you please stop? He was buck wild this morning getting ready for school. But in those moments, like, some of my favorite conversations happen with kids when it's just that time where it's just us and there's uninterrupted time to just sit and talk. Yeah. Because you learn so much, and it builds that trust, because without that trust, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, oh man, it's just, I think like, I don't even know how does an individual get better at this? What are some like real world applications that we can maybe just kind of keep at the forefront of our mind, to where it's like, okay, before you like jump into like a conversation, like, is there something, maybe just something I need to just brush up on, read up on, look at a note on my phone, whatever that looks like. What are some things that I can keep in mind, to where I can, like, this conversation can not only benefit, the individual that I'm talking to, but it can also benefit me as well. Like, I know that we've talked about some, but like, is there any kind of like, I don't know, like a cheat code or something?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing that I would say is obviously building trust. Like, especially if you're a parent, obviously you should already have that trust built with your children, but building that trust with them is going to be huge. And then active listening, like being present in those moments. It is very hard, especially now, because we have these little devices that are constantly with us. But to be present when kids are talking, or even when you're having a conversation with someone else, like even as adults, a lot of times it's easy to have that phone. But being active in those listening scenarios, asking those open-ended questions, affirming and validating what that person is saying, reflecting, like, oh, okay, so what I think I hear you saying is this. And then even like summarizing, like those types of things, but being active in that. You can't do those things if you're not actively listening. Yeah. Being adaptable, like being able to like see that type of like conversation and being able to adapt your language behind that. One of the biggest language changes that like people will have to make is that there's the little word called wrong. Yeah. What's wrong with you? When we ask kids what's wrong with them, it makes them think that what they're feeling is bad.
that like
it's literally like sweeping the rug from underneath their feet.
It's like, what's wrong? Like, so it's never what's wrong. It's what's the matter? Like, what happened? That's what I normally say. If I see a kid that's upset or, you know, somebody's getting in, even if somebody's getting in trouble, I'm like, hey, what's going on? What happened? Not what's wrong. Because when they say wrong, it immediately is a bad, like, connotation of like, well, I guess what I did was wrong, when really and truly I was just trying to do X, Y, and Z. And we don't know what they were trying to do because I haven't given them the opportunity to say that. So, but then empathizing and having that patience. But a lot of it is going to be allowing the silence. Like, your kid may not want to talk to you in that moment. Sit there in the silence. It's okay. Like, you don't have to continue to push. Pushing is not going to continue a conversation. No, I don't like to be pushed. I don't like it.
It closes people up more.
I don't like it.
It's one of the things, like, I'm trying, because I'm constantly going through this within the last couple of months with our foster kids and that journey that we are on as a family. And it's finding ways that you can have a conversation that is meaningful, to where, you know, we can all come to an agreement of like, okay, what does this next step look like? What does this look like? And it's like, I'm trying to do better at, just listening, because the individuals, I mean, like our foster kids, they've been through some pretty terrible, situations and, life experiences.
Right.
And I was just super fortunate to have like an amazing upbringing, and it's hard for me to even think why somebody would do this to a child, or allow certain situations to kind of unfold. And so how can I walk in someone's shoes? Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, even if it doesn't fit, like, how can I walk along in those shoes with someone to make that connection, you know?
Right.
Like, it's difficult for sure, but, you know, that's the road that we are walking down, because God asked us to do something. Sometimes you just have to be obedient and allow him to, like, work through you in those situations. But,
and that is hard. Like, it is hard. And understanding that and acknowledging that is a step in the right direction. Like, you have to be able to acknowledge that those things are hard. Because Terry and I always say, we can do hard things. Like, because we can. It's just hard. It's just hard sometimes. But just acknowledging those things in those moments. But then I think too, a big thing with it, especially when it comes to communicating with kids, is like, you have to get on their level. You have to get on their level. I don't know how many times, like, conversations have happened just in general, like, just conversations. My favorite thing to do with Olivia is sit in the car, and we'll be driving somewhere, and we'll have the music like down low, and it's always a song like she likes or something. And then all of a sudden, like, we're just being silly back and forth. And then all of a sudden she'll just start talking, and she just goes and tells me everything. And I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Or like, I've had conversations with kids before where, like, when doing counseling type sessions, and they did not want to talk to me. They did not want to talk to me at all. And I know that they don't want to talk to me, but like, trying to find common ground. I had a situation since being here where I had a parent ask if I could talk to their kid, because their kid was making this has been a few years ago, but like, their kid was making comments about wanting to harm themselves and wanting to, like, end their life. And so I was like, okay, I can definitely talk to them and, like, you know, see what's going on. And so we chatted, had the conversation. And at first, this child did not want to talk to me at all, like, at all. And so I told the parent, I was like, listen, I'm just going to give it some time throughout the evening. Like, we're just going to let it go. I will get a conversation with them, but I'm not going to talk to them right now because they're at a heightened state.
So we continued to like just do our own thing. And throughout the rest of the evening, there was a time where the kids wanted to, like all the kids wanted to color and draw. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Like, let's get it. And so we got paper and pencils and crayons and everything. And we're sitting on the floor and we're all coloring and drawing and stuff. And this kid comes over and sits like super close to me. And so we're sitting there and I'm like, hey, I was like, what are you doing? What are you drawing? Oh, I'm drawing, my favorite character. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I was like, can you teach me how to do that? Yeah. So they're teaching me how to draw their favorite character. And as we're sitting there doing this like character drawing, which I purposefully was making mine look awful so that there was continued, oh, Jess, that looks stupid. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm not very good at this. But like going back and forth. And then finally I was able to say, hey, I have a question for you. I said, earlier tonight, you made a comment about wanting to harm yourself. I said, do you really feel that way? Well, no, but like when I get upset, that's just the first thing that comes out of my mouth. And I'm like, okay, like, can you tell me why that's the first thing that comes out of your mouth? No, it's just like the only thing that I can think of in that moment. I just get really mad and I can't think of anything else. And then that just comes out. And I was like, okay, so you don't have a plan like to harm yourself or anything like that? No, why would I do that? And I was like, well, that's what we just want to make sure, like you're not in a place where you want to hurt yourself. No, I wouldn't do that. I just sometimes just get mad and just say things. I'm like, okay. And I was like, well, how can we find something else that we could say? Like, what's something else that we could say when we're getting mad or we're getting angry? And so we just sat there and this child never made eye contact with me ever. We literally just sat there and colored the entire time. And every now and then I'd look up and talk to him and they'd put their head back down and keep coloring. They'd look up and look at me and talk to me and keep down and color. And we had this entire conversation. So then when mom came back, I was able to tell mom, like, hey, we had this conversation. I don't think that he's actually a danger to himself right now. Like, I think that everything will be fine. Like, I just think that there are some big emotions that they're dealing with that they don't really fully understand how to express themselves. And so it's going to come down to like having healthy communication and being able to have that like open dialogue of like, hey, I'm feeling some sort of way right now. I don't fully know how to express it. So what can I say? What can I do? And so like, it is in those things, like you just have to sometimes take the hard things, and those hard conversations and allow for that silence and allow for yourself to get down on their level. Yeah. Because that is when you're truly going to start to build that trust to open up. But also just allow that time to just be themselves in that moment.
That's good stuff. My goodness. Now you brought some books with you today.
I did. So like over the last couple years, I've been going to some conferences and I've actually used a couple of these books, like when talking to kids. But this one right here is from Beth Guckenberger. She's one of my favorites. But it's called The Heart Who Wanted to Be Whole. And it was like, it says, the back of the book says that this heart was created whole, solid, happy, and free. The heart wanted to stay that way, but there was an enemy who had other plans. When the heart gets hurt, who will help it become whole again? God created our hearts to be whole and free, but we have an enemy who whispers lies that hurt our hearts and make us wonder what's true. The heart who wanted to be whole leads children to hear, know, and speak God's truths loud and clear. This powerful story reminds us that no matter how hurtful the enemy's lies are, God's words are stronger and can make us whole. And so this is a really great book to talk to with kids who have some of those big emotions, and kind of trying to understand, like, because again, we live in a society right now where our kids, they have been through some things, like they have been through some stuff. And so just allowing them to know like whose they are. There was a Tim Tebow book that he wrote a few years ago, like he did a devotional and he talked about it's not a matter of who you are, but it's a matter of whose you are. And so like just that reminder of like there is an enemy who has an agenda, but there's also a God who loves us and cares for us and is there for us, and can be that person for us. And so that's one of those. Dude,
you read the description on that so fast.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
The only thing that I could think of whenever you were reading that so fast was, I feel sorry for the people who listen to the podcast at like 1.5 speed or 2 speed,
Slow this portion down.
Yeah, you need to go back and just listen to it normal speed or like slow it down because you can listen to it slow too.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why anybody would listen to a podcast like at half speed or something.
No.
Those people need prayer.
Yeah. The other book I have, this is more for younger kids. This is actually a really cool book. We just got this at the conference I went to last year. Actually, I got all 3 of these at the conference I went to last year. But this one is called Our God is Bigger Than That. And so it talks about like things that God is bigger than. Like he's bigger than the fear of the spiders or, you know, whatever. He's bigger than being he's bigger than our fears. He's bigger than the chicken who is afraid of the fox. He's bigger than all of these things because God is bigger than that. There's like in this one, it says the farmer calls the herd of cows, but one calf will not come. I'm scared of biting flies, calf says. One bit me on my bum. But then it says, then the mama cow says, don't be afraid. I'll keep the flies away. And even if I'm not around, God's with you every day. And so it talks about how God is bigger than some of those things. He's bigger than our fears. He's bigger than the things that we go through.
That's great.
And then we read that book. We actually did this book on a Wednesday night last session. And then we talked about the story of David and Goliath and how God is bigger than those giants that we face in our lives. And that even though we're young, we still have giants. We still have things that are big and we don't know if we can like attack those things, but we can because God is on our side.
Yeah.
And then this last one is probably my favorite. It's a Toni Collier book. She is one of my favorites. I have got to hear Toni speak probably 3 or 4 times now in the last couple years. But she actually has a whole podcast on this, Broken Crayons, Still Color. And she wrote this about her daughter and how her daughter had all of these big emotions. And she had started to color one day and her crayons broke. And she was very upset that her crayons had broken. And she didn't think that she could make anything out of broken crayons, out of things that are broken. But she quickly learns that you can still make a masterpiece out of broken crayons. And that in that same way, God can still make a masterpiece out of our brokenness and out of the things that we have. And she goes through and basically learns that she can actually make something beautiful. And her mom tells her, after all, Avery says, broken crayons still color. Because at the end of the day, they do still color. And so they have like a color wheel at the back of this. And it says, how do colors make me feel? And it has like red makes me feel brave, angry, romantic, powerful, bold. Purple is creative or artistic, spiritual. And so like those types of things of like really digging into those emotions and allowing the kids to understand that even though something may feel broken, even though something may not feel whole, they still have a story. They still have something that they have going on. But Broken Crayon Still Color, it's her story about her daughter Avery. And so it teaches her about big feelings and how to color with confidence and that God will always be with her.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold on to these to the end of the day because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some actual links to these in the show notes in the description, just for maybe parents that want to purchase these and have them and read through them with their kids and if they're struggling, and it'll help with just those conversations and how to navigate them maybe a little bit better. I've enjoyed this, and I'm kind of looking forward to our next week where we're going to talk about what is, now that we're getting better at our conversations with kids, what does that look like in a spiritual aspect?
Yes.
Which is exciting.
It is.
Because, as parents.
And nerve-wracking at time too.
Yeah, because as parents, we all want our kids to grow close to God, and we all want them to, do the same next steps as we are going through. What is our next step in our faith journey? What does that look like for a kid? It's just one of those things that I'm just really excited about. Without spoiling too much, what we're going to talk about.
Oh, here we go. Mystery meat. I feel like I haven't been on here. You know what? I haven't been on here since March.
Well, yeah.
I just thought about that because you've been doing this series.
Yeah.
And it was my birthday. It was when we ate all the crazy candy from my birthday thing.
Oh, yeah,
we talked about the 80s because we're old.
Dude, yeah. Well, one of the things that I've liked, and so like for maybe individuals maybe who've kind of picked up on what we've been doing, is doing it a series.
Yeah, I like this though.
Because
this is cool.
It's like you do like one episode on Habakkuk, and then we have something in between it, and then we do another episode on movies or shoes or whatever, and then we get back into Habakkuk. And so we just had a good conversation about like let's just do a block, because it gives the individuals who are coming on the show like more time to like, let's put some like a little, like, not that the stuff that we were doing in the past was bad, but let's put some more effort into it, and how do we make it more engaging and a benefit for the individuals that are listening. I mean, of course, we're going to have our random ones. I know we're going to have, the next thing that we're going to talk about is probably, practical jokes that we did whenever we were kids or something, with
are always
fart
fun
spray and whoopee cushions and whatever. But anyways, time for the mystery meat. What is the most unusual talent or skill you possess that not many people know about?
Oh gosh. Talent or skill that I possess that not many people know about.
Mm-hmm.
Oh geez Louise. Well, this is actually funny. Okay, don't judge me. This is weird. You're only going to understand this if you are watching the podcast, okay? Because I'm going to have to actually show you. Okay.
Do you want me to describe it for them?
No. Hold on a minute.
Oh, you got a piece of candy?
I had a piece of candy in my mouth. I'm sorry. So we did this at camp. I didn't realize that not other people can do this. I mean,
cloverleaf tongue.
I can't cloverleaf, but I can do something else. So I can fold my tongue like this.
Yeah.
Right. But I can also tuck my tongue. Right.
See? Oh, it looks like a. Looks like a clam.
It's weird. I know. But then I can also touch my tongue to my nose.
Don't do that.
I can. I just did it. Thank you for those of you who are watching. You're welcome. But the reason I say that, I did not know that other people can do that. So Kristen was telling me that, like, I guess to with his tongue is actually like very rare for people to be able to do that. I didn't know that, but she said like it's a rarity for people to be able to do that. Well, Cohen can do it. So I was like, well, Cohen, if you can do this, then you can do this.
Yeah.
I did that. And Cohen is like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
So for a good 20 minutes, he's trying. And Kristen was like, oh my goodness, you have taught my child something, and he is going to continue until he perfects it. She said, because that's the way he is, but he could never do it. And I've never seen anybody else that can do that.
Yeah.
It's weird, but I can do it. It's not necessarily a talent, but it's definitely something weird that I can do. There you go.
I could do the clover tongue.
I can't do that.
But I don't know if a skill. I don't know. I like to build things. Like but most people know that about me, I guess, a little bit. I've talked about it a lot on here. Just because it allows, it's like a new form of creativity for me. And I just wish wood wasn't so expensive, or the tools that I need. Like, I've been slowly saving up for like this one tool that I want, and I just can't. Like, something else always pops up, like, like I have to replace tires or something on a vehicle.
It always makes me laugh too. This is like, I guess it's a talent. I don't know, but I can actually sing, which is funny. Yeah. Because
not a lot of people know that.
People don't know that.
Yeah.
They're like I sang at Good Friday service, and the amount of people that came up to me afterwards and were like, Jessica, I didn't know you could sing. Your brother can't sing. And I'm like, nope, he sure can't. And so it's always funny. But me and my mom and my dad can all sing. So I used to be in a group that traveled in high school. And then I was actually on a group of 4 that traveled in college. So I tried out and got on this group, and we traveled to churches and sang on Sunday mornings and did all that stuff in college. Yeah. So yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
I like to sing.
Was your group called the Monkeys?
No,
hey,
we were
the Monkeys.
We called? I can't remember what we were called. That our school had, so we had PR teams, and then you had like,
was it Christian music?
Yeah. So I went to a Christian college, and we would go. So they had all of these. I can't remember what the groups were called, but like you had upperclassmen that went to like big things, and then you had. I didn't try out for that. I tried out for the step down team. I was a little nervous of the other team. And so I tried out for the other one and did that and was on there with, there were 4 of us. We had 3 girls and 1 guy. And so we would go and we would travel all over Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia. And we would do that probably 2 or 3 Sundays a month. For probably 4 or 5 months, and then we would be home on, those off Sundays. And so I did that for a year. No, I think I did that 2 years actually, at Mount Vernon. And then, I didn't do it after that. I just didn't want to keep traveling on the weekends. It was a lot. So, yeah. But I enjoyed it. It was fun. Yeah.
Alrighty. What kind of tongue folding tricks do you guys have?
You're welcome.
We hope y'all enjoyed the conversation today. I did for sure. Looking forward to next week. Y'all have a good weekend, and we'll see you for another episode of the blah blah blah
of the pastor's potluck.
I was thinking about clover tongue again. Get out of here, guys. Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. You can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.